happening, guys? Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to the vlog. Today we're doing the first install video on the E90 M3. What we're going to be doing today is taking my Uniden radar and hardwiring it, and also doing a mounting bracket for the Uniden R3 radar detector. I've actually already done this in the F30, but in that video I hardwired it to the mirror, the electronics in the mirror. This one's going to be a little bit different. We're going to hardwire it to the fuse box. I was looking around online and it seems like this is the easiest way to go about it with the hardwiring kit in the E90 M3. So we're going to jump right into it. I'm going to show you guys how it's set up right now and kind of the plan for this whole thing. When it comes to the mount, I didn't go with a blend mount because they are crazy expensive. I've actually found a mount that's very similar on Amazon. I'll link all of the stuff that I'm using in the video today down below. But I found this mount on Amazon and it's considerably cheaper than the blend one, and it works perfectly fine. I have it the F30, I love it. $35 for the mount, and the actual hardwiring kit was like 20, 25 bucks, something like that. You can buy both of these together. They have different options for that, whether you want to hardwire it to the mirror, but I wanted a specific kind of hardwiring kit, so I just went and purchased it separately. So if we look inside of the car, obviously I'm using the cigarette lighter at the moment, and these little suction cups for the radar detector, which just likes to flop all over the place. Not to mention this is in the way of everything and just kind of hangs out there. And this isn't really like the cleanest way to set it up. So the way that we're gonna do this is set the mount up right back here and kind of angle it off to the side so it hangs just to the right of the mirror, pushed back a little bit. It should be a pretty clean way to install it. I love the one that I have in my F30. And this way it's relatively simple. We're gonna go ahead and run the wires back along the headliner, down here through the pillar, over here into the glove compartment, and back there are fuses. So we're gonna use the fuses that are in the back of the actual glove compartment, and I'll show you guys how that all works. So the first thing you wanna do is take off this little plastic piece right here. There's two little knobs. You just twist them so they're pointing up vertically on each side, and then that piece will drop down. And then obviously right back there are your fuses. So it's a little bit difficult to see, but if you look right here on the top of this fuse box, there's a fuse right here, and then a fuse right here, a red one and a yellow one. Right to the right of that is an open slot, and that's where we're gonna actually be inserting the fuse for our radar detector. That fuse will allow the radar detector to turn off when we turn the car off and turn on when we turn the car on. And then next to the fuse box, you're gonna see a little bolt right here. We're gonna take that bolt out, and that's where we're gonna be grounding the actual fuse kit, the hardwiring kit for the radar detector. So you're gonna do two steps. It's gonna be the ground and then the actual fuse right up there, and then we should be all good. So here's everything that comes with the little radar mount kit. You have two little screws right here that actually hold the radar bracket onto the mount. I'll show you how to put that on. And then you have these two longer screws, which are meant to replace these if you have just like a really fat mirror mount and you can't quite get around it. For our application, I think we're gonna be just fine with the ones that are supplied. So I'll show you guys how to set this up. You just take the little bracket, line it up with that hole, and then put the actual screws through. All right, so once you get everything together, it's gonna look kind of like this. So I found when I'm actually putting the bracket onto the mirror, I just set it up similar to that. And then it sits right underneath the mirror, nice and flush. So let's go ahead and put this on the car. I'm not gonna tighten everything up right away, but I'm just gonna put it on the car so I can measure up the actual hardwiring kit, and then we'll run the wires and finish off the job. So as I'm kind of looking at this setup, there's a really big gap up here, so I don't think I'm gonna need to take this off. We'll just end up mounting it, and then I'll run the wire and tuck it in here, and then run it all the way up there into the headliner and all the way down. I don't really think it's necessary to take this off. You could, I mean, there's a couple of ways you could do this. You could like drill a hole through the plastic. Obviously take it off first. You don't want to just drill into here, but take this off. You could drill a hole and then like run it through there if you want like a super clean setup, or you could just like notch a hole right there just so it would go right in. I don't think you need to do that though. There's a really big gap up here, so you can just tuck it right in, coming straight out of the radar detector, and you should be just fine. So let's go ahead and put the mount on and then see how it lines up with the actual mirror. What I did was I just took out one of the screws on one side, and it is a really tight fit in here, so you kind of have to move the mirror around in order to get it to snap in. But once you snap it in, you'll have room to actually adjust it. So once you get it in, I just left this screw out over here, left the other one in. That makes it easier, so it actually just hangs there, and then I can just tighten up the actual bolts with the Allen key. So I'm gonna go ahead and tighten those up and kind of position it like loosely to where I think it best fits. This is kind of how I set it up. Now you'll see back here, it's really, really tight. So you don't have a lot of room to work with. So rather than this top part of the mount actually being up and down, I twisted it a little bit so the whole thing is pointing this way. I just like the radar to be off center a little bit so it's not sitting directly under that little red light area. But this is very similar to how I have it in the F30. The F30 has a little bit more real estate back here so you can get it more snug to the mirror. But this is just fine. Anything is better really than slapping it on your front windshield. So that's the setup, that's what we're gonna roll with. Let's go ahead and run the actual Hardwire. All right, so this is the actual wire, and it is super long. I believe this whole thing is 10 feet. And then you'll see it comes out on this side. This is where we're gonna be grounding it. I showed you that little bolt to the left of the fuse box. We're gonna be grounding with this. And then for this part right here, we're actually gonna be connecting these two guys and using this little fuse plug to go into that fuse box port. So let's go ahead and start running the actual wire, and then we'll go ahead and start working on the fuse box portion. All right, so we have the wire coming out of the radar detector and then running it through here. So this is what I was talking about. You can kind of see what I was saying by just tucking it in here. I guess there are some cleaner ways you could do this. You could just put like a little notch right there and run it through, or you can just tuck it like that. I'm just gonna roll with that for a while. I'm not too concerned about it. It doesn't seem to really be going anywhere. Maybe I'll wrap it around the front so there's like a little more tension on it, just like that. So it just goes right in the front and then comes up through the top right there. And then you literally just tuck it in. You'll see I got a little sticking out right there, so I just gotta tuck it further in there. As you can see, this just keeps hanging down. I'm going to take a little bit of just tape and stick it on the wire and put it in 3 spots back here, just so it stays up there. The gap is really just so large up top here that there's not a lot of room for the wire to sit and actually stay. It just comes right out. So what you want to do is either leave a lot of slack and really tuck it, or you can just take a little bit of tape and throw it on the actual wire and tuck it in, and then it should stick to something. But it seems okay now. I don't think it's gonna stay. And then what I did was, rather than running it down here, because this seemed to be really tight, and then once we got down here, we'd have to cross over here. Rather than doing that, I just went across right here, which was really easy. And then I just tucked it back behind this weather stripping in there and ran it all the way down and over here. There you go, there's the wire that's coming out right there. And there's a little canal in here, if you can see this little groove. I'm gonna run it into that groove so it doesn't push this up too much. But this is that piece that you pull out. All you do to pull that out is just take a trim tool, pop, 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 comes out. And then in here, you guys are gonna be able to see it, but there's a canal that goes from this little area into the actual glove compartment. And as you can see, I've already fed it through. So now we're just gonna take this and run our ground wire, which is gonna be, like I said before, right there, and the fuse right there. So we got that ground bolt out. Here it is, it's a T30, big old T30, so you pop that out. You could just clean up the contact a little bit with like a flathead screwdriver, but I'm really not worried about it. I think it's gonna be just fine. So here is the contact screw, and all I've done is wrap the ground around the inside of the screw. Then we're gonna go ahead and slap that back in there. And then we're just gonna take the other side that goes into that fuse and connect the actual fuse part. So they just give you a little snap connector here. You could go ahead and wrap this in electrical tape if you're worried about it, but I think the connection is just fine. I think we'll be okay. So we're just gonna run this into that one fuse, just like that. So now you guys can see how I have that ran. I have that fuse going into the first slot next to that 10, that red 10. And then obviously we have our ground bolt. And now what we're gonna do is take all of this slack that we have We're just gonna go ahead and zip tie it up in there so it's nice and clean. Got it all zip tied up in there, nice and clean. Got our connections looking good. Now we're gonna go ahead and put that plastic cover on right there and we should be good. All right, so we're in the car, got the Uniden all mounted up, wires ran. We're gonna go ahead and start it. The radar detector shouldn't turn on when I have power right now in accessory mode. We actually want this to power on only when the car powers on. So let's go ahead and start the car. Hey, cool, so we're good. Nice and clean. All right, so there you guys go. Pretty easy install, very straightforward. Probably take you about an hour to do it with everything involved. Like I said, I'm gonna leave a link down in the description to all of the products that you need in order to accomplish the job. I just think this looks way better, much cleaner, mounted directly under that mirror and no wires showing. It's definitely just a more sleek setup when you have a radar detector. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching the video. Please do subscribe if you're new here, comment down below, like this video, hit that bell notification just like that. This video's over, and I'm out. Peace.